This conference will now be recorded.
And let me allow to turn the mic on. And yes, any questions, guys? Does anyone have any questions before we can get started? Anything that you're practicing, not getting, any challenges that you're facing, anything that I can take, I can address? Anyone, any questions, guys? Sorry, how to create hundreds of resource groups at the same time? Then I would say, what is the source that you're getting from? What are the names? How are you getting the source? Are the names of all the 100 different resource groups, are they stored in a some file? If yes, then I can read that file, get all that particular resource groups. Or are you passing that names? Are you constructing those names inside a PowerShell? Yes, you can go ahead get. You can also do that. Meaning, let's say if you have test one to test 100, you want to create all those things, and then you have test one to test 100 names. You want to go ahead create all those names within Azure, and also go ahead and let's say do a for each loop. Yes, you can do that. So it just depends upon where your source is, how your source is coming from. So let's say if you say that, you know what, my resource group names are test 1 to test 100, I can create all those things without having to write them. Because if I go ahead and say rg names, and if I say at the rate, I'll have to pass all the 100 names out here. Even if I parameterize this, you as a user who's going ahead and creating this out, even it'll be an issue for you as also. You also cannot go ahead and let's say pass, or you also cannot go ahead and create so many things out there. So what I can do is that I can just declare this as an empty array, telling rg names out here, and I can do a for loop out here. Then I can say for I is equal to 0, I is less than, let's say do this, and let's say I is less than 100, or I is less than or equal to 100, because you need 100 resource groups with 0 to let's say, or 1 to 100. So I'll say it is I is equal to 1, and I'll say I plus plus. And what I can do is that if I go ahead and now write something called write host, I can say name of the RG is test hyphen dollar I. I can do this. So if I do this, what will really happen out here is this. This is what you wanted. Test hyphen something like this. I'm sorry. I didn't get you. Can you come again, please? Test cases. Can you come? Sorry. Can you come again with your question? I didn't get it. Hmm. In that containers, I didn't get you. Can you please come again? Elaborate the question a little bit. No, I did not even create a storage account yesterday. I never created a storage till now. I just asked you all to let's say create a storage account. I did not create it yet. I never created. I'm just creating resource groups till now. I don't do anything apart from that. So I have written something called test hyphen 01. Now I can say write hyphen host, and I'll say yeah, it does. No, it's not test cases. It's resource groups. Please come back to that. It's resource groups. But you're asking this one, the test 1 to 100. You're asking, did I create it? I did not create it. I'm showing you how to create it. So it won't create until and unless you go and write something called as a new hyphen Azure resource group command. Only then it'll create it. What I'm doing here is that I'm creating the names. That's it. I'm not creating the resource groups. Now, if you do this one, you have test 1 to test 100. Mhm. Again, if you say another RG name, then I'll ask you what is the logic for you to build that project. Let's say resource group name out here. Meaning you should have some of the other logic to build a resource group name. You should take the input from somewhere. Either if you want, you can give all that input in your array. You'll have to give all that input in your array, or you'll have to read that input from somewhere. Either of them. And let's say you have an Excel file. Someone is giving an Excel file with all the resource group names inside it. You can read that particular resource group names from an Excel file, or you have to construct your own names out here. It's just about your logic. It just purely depends upon your logic on how you're creating it out. Or if you just need 50 here with test 1 to test 50, then instead of let's say 100, give a 50 here. That will give you 50 resource groups. Do another for loop. Give, let's say, multiple resource group names. If you have an array, you can read that array. Or let's say you do not need test 1, test 2, something like that. You want ABC1, ABC2, and all these things. So I'm just, let's say, looking at a pattern. I'm just looking at a pattern. So for example, let's say to address your question, I'll say you need 50 with test 1 to test 50. I will say go ahead, execute this out. That's, my mouse is a little sticky today. Fine. Test 1 to test 50, I got this. Now, if I want the remaining 50 to be, let's say, something like dev resource group 1, dev resource group 2, so on and so forth. I can say for again, and I can say $I is equal to 1 or I is equal to 2, whatever number that you want to start this with. I'll say $I is less than or equal to 50, and I'll say $I plus plus. And I can do a write host, and I can say that the name of the RG is dev hyphen RG hyphen $I. And if I execute these things out here, you're getting the first 50 in one pattern, the other 50 in the other pattern. So it's just about the pattern and how do you filter it out. And once you have this, what I can do is that I can say new hyphen az resource group to create a resource group hyphen the name of the resource group. And this time around, the name is going to be something like, uh, yeah, the name of the RG is going to be test, or you don't need this one. You can say test hyphen $I, and give this entire as a value out here. You can kind of do this out here, and you can go ahead and create all these resource groups. You can get these resource groups in this way. If I end up creating this out, it'll go ahead create all the 50, which I don't want to do. But this is the logic what you can formulate to go ahead and create so many resource groups at a go. Again, that's the reason I'm asking, what is your source? Is your source an array? Are you, let's say, hard coding all your resource groups here? Or are you parameterizing it and, let's say, allowing a user to pass it? Or do you have a source file? Meaning you have, let's say, your client is giving you an Excel file with all the resource group names. Are you looking into that file and creating it out? What exactly that you're doing? So it depends upon where you're reading it from. Multiple things out there. Yes, anyone, any questions here?
Hello.
Good, please.
Yeah. First line, RG names. You did some at with brackets. I didn't
Right.
understand that.
No, this actually is not needed. I wanted to come with a different logic, but this is actually not needed. I
Okay.
just
Okay.
wrote it to help someone explain whether you're passing the names of the resource groups and etc. I don't
Okay.
really need that. I'm not using it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, any questions? Again, this is a simple logics. I'm just giving you simple, let's say, building blocks out here. Yes, any questions clear? Anyone, any questions clear?
Here it goes with the series, right? Like,
Correct. It
but
goes
what
with
if
the
we
same.
have
Mhm.
different names?
Again, what is the source? If you're saying different names, then my question is that what is the source of those different names? Are we creating those different names in the script? Then yes, we can go and create one resource group. I mean, create resource groups as and when you create the name out there. Or are you getting those names from somewhere? Have you parameterized it? Are you getting those names from somewhere? Or are you storing those names in a file? If you're storing those names in a file, we'll also look at that in file handling on if you have different names, how you can store that in a file, how you can read that file, how you can create resource groups, storage accounts, and all these things are there.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, hi Kiran. So if you have as a source input as a Excel file, so is there any
Mhm.
concept like import Excel file?
Yes, there is a concept called import Excel file. You can import the Excel file. You can
and
import
then read
JSON
the data
files,
from there, right?
XML files.
Okay.
Exactly. You can read the data from there, get all the data, and then go ahead and let's say create resource groups or storage
Okay.
accounts or whatever resources that you have.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, can we also rename through command line resource groups?
Again, when you say rename command or rename the resource groups through a command line, my question again is that can we rename a resource group using the Azure portal? Yes, no, maybe. Can we do that?
Uh, I think yeah, resource group can be renamed, I guess.
The resource group will be renamed as in like, do we see anywhere to rename a particular resource after creating it out?
No.
Not really. So if you want to rename something, you'll have to delete and recreate it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
rename is not really allowed out there. Yes, any questions? Anyone, any more questions with this? Again, yesterday's session, what we were doing is that we were looking into reusability of a script. We were telling if the resource group exists, then go ahead and create it. Otherwise, tell that, okay, fine, the resource group is there, I won't create it and all these things out. So we did an if else loop there. We firstly did a get statement. We also passed something called error action, silently continue and all these things out. Now I want to build an end-to-end script right now. So today what I want to do is that I want to build an end-to-end script which creates a resource group if it doesn't exist, and also creates a storage account within this resource group if the storage account doesn't exist. So this is what I want to write as an end-to-end scripting, that I want to go ahead and let's say create my resource groups and storage accounts and etc. But again, let's focus upon the very bare basic before we go ahead and write a logic. Let's understand a couple of basics before we go ahead and develop our logics out here. And the basics that I want to focus upon is how to create a storage account, like the bare minimal command, the skeleton of a command on how to go ahead and let's say create something called as a storage account as such. Again, I asked you all to read about storage account creation, right? So what is the command to create a storage account out here? New hyphen AZ storage account. This is the command. This is the skeleton of it. So if I go here into the Azure portal, and if I say new hyphen AZ storage account, if I just type this in, I'll get a documentation out here. And this documentation will brief things about how do I go ahead and create something. How do I go ahead and let's say create the storage account out here. And it's taking a whole lot of parameters. There are a lot of parameters out here. There are a lot of arguments, script arguments that it requires. So let's look at an example. So it's telling create a very simple storage account, and it is telling that you know what, it is new hyphen AZ storage account hyphen what, the resource group name, the name of the storage account, location, SKU, standard LRS, standard GRS, premium LRS, premium GRS, ZRS, and all these things out. So let's write the minimal command. Let's write whatever minimal that I need. Let's go here and let's say new hyphen AZ storage account. This is the command to create a storage account. And to create this particular storage account, I need to pass some parameters. I'll say space hyphen resource
I
group name. Again, this
sorry to
order
disturb
can
you.
be anything. I'm sorry, can you please come again?
Yeah, sorry to disturb you. We are not giving access there, right? While creating storage account, it will take
Correct.
hard by default.
Hot by default, exactly. You're not giving an access tier. It will take hot by default. If you want to change it, you can pass a parameter called access tier, which I'll also show you, and you can change it from let's say cool to hot, hot to cool, and etc.
Okay, okay. Thank
Okay, while doing a CD, I got some issues. Can you please repeat something? Can we create or can we move resource group? Can we move resources between resource groups? Yes, we can move resources between resource groups, but still, since I'm here in the question, I'll say while doing a CD, I got some issues with this one. I'll just address this out. Can you repeat one? So when you're doing a CD, my question back to you is that Do you have a space in your path? You might have got an issue, because if you have a space in your path, you will get meaning. Let's look into that real quick before I come here. Let's go into this one particular folder. And do you see I have a folder called Terraform space classes, right? Okay, let's go back there. If you have a space in your path, which in all likely I think you might have, that's the reason you might get this particular error. Let's do a CLS, and if I do a CD giving a space, this is the error that you get. Probably this is the same error what you would have got here when you tried. Setting a positional parameter called spaces is not identified. Reason being, reason being, PowerShell is considering these two to be two separate things out here. So if you have a space in your path, please do a CD in quotes. This will work. If you have a space, PowerShell will start considering that particular space as an actual character.
But
So
actually, I
please
got some
make
other
sure.
errors, sir, actually.
Yeah, if you, please send the error across to me so that I can look into that. Like exactly what is
Oh,
the error and what are you doing. Accordingly, I can go ahead and suggest you.
okay. Thank you.
So let's come back here, and the bare minimal command here is new -az storage account, and I need to pass some parameters, or I need to pass some values to this particular command, and I'll say hyphen resource group name and space. As in when I do a space, it will load all the resource group names because my PowerShell is already connected to Azure. I'll say this is the resource group name that I want to create the storage account in called test01, which already exists. I'll say hyphen the name of the storage account. Again, when I'm passing the name of the storage account, very important, I need my name to be 3 to 24 characters, no special characters in place, no upper cases. Name should be unique. So I'll say this is something like STOR store account, storage account. I'll say for a team called dev, created by PowerShell called PS. I'll say 000, something like this. And let's give a location or something. I'll say East US. Something like this, so that the name can be unique. I'm just constructing a name which is unique out here. I'll say hyphen SKU name. And as in when I do an SKU name, it's loading all these things out here, telling it is standard LRS, premium LRS. What exactly do you need? I'll go for a standard performance in LRS out here. This is the first thing that I want to go for. Say hyphen location, and in location I'll say this is in quotes. I'm passing something called East US 2. And the reason I'm passing this in quotes is because there is a space here. So I don't want PowerShell to consider that to be a character. So that's the reason I'm passing it in quotes out here, telling that this entire thing is a string. I'll say hyphen, and as someone said, there is something called access tier. You can pass access tier. If you do not pass it, it will by default create the storage account in hot. But if you want to override it, you can say is it hot or is it cool? Anything is fine. I'll take this in hot right now. And account kind, by default you get an account kind called storage v2, storage version 2. I'm just passing it out just in case if you need this. So right now if you look at this one, it's new -az storage account, the name of the resource group name that I want to create this in, the name of the storage account that I want to create, the location where I want to create the storage account, access tier of the storage account, and also the kind of the storage account that I'm creating. And let's execute this command out. And once we execute this command out, let's understand how the command performs and how, let's say, the command is, let's say, going ahead and let's say performing out here, etc. So again, a storage account is a huge resource, so it will take around 1 or 2 minutes for this to the storage account to be created. Resource groups are pretty simple. It usually takes around seconds. And once this is created, let's understand how the response comes in, and let's also visit the Azure, let's say, portal, and let's check. Sorry, let's visit the Azure portal and let's also check how it is created. Again, if you look at this, it is giving you in written these details, telling that the storage account name is this one, resource group is what, test01, then you have a primary location East US, and you have SKU name and all these things. Let's go back into the Azure portal and let's look at our storage accounts that got created. Again, it's saying there are no storage account services that got created out here. Reason being, it will take 1 or 2 minutes for your cache, your browser cache to reset and all these things out. And if you refresh this a couple of times, and it took around 1 minute. And if you refresh this, now you have a storage account that got created in what? Test 01. This is the resource group in which it got created in. And let's go here and let's understand this. So the resource group is test 01, ECUS2, standard, LRS, storage v2, and all these things out here. So I created a simple storage account without having to touch the Azure portal, and I used a simple command called new hyphen az storage account. This is a Azure PowerShell command, not purely a Windows PowerShell command. It's an Azure PowerShell command. Again, a simple Azure PowerShell command will throw a lot of errors. This will not give you a flexibility to reuse. Meaning, what I mean by this is this: if I run the same command once again, it's now telling that the storage account something is already taken because I already created it. I'm trying to recreate it. It'll fail because PowerShell doesn't understand who created it. It'll just check whether the storage account name is there. It'll say it's already there. I'm sorry, I won't create it. I'll fail and it'll stop the script out here. Reason being, I need to combine this with PowerShell. I mean, I need to combine this with, let's say, my Windows PowerShell knowledge, do some if else, and I'll have to be smart enough to check whether the storage account already is existing. If it is, then I'll say, okay, fine, you know what, it already exists. If it is not, then I'll say, you know what, if it's not, I'll go ahead and create this out. That's how I can go ahead and do that. That's the logic that I want to, let's say, go towards. We'll build that logic out there. But before going there, let's also try out one of the basic commands out here. So we created something, which is the storage account. So I created this out. Now, after I created, I came to know that I had to create this in GRS and not LRS. It has to be, let's say, a GRS. It's not an LRS out here. So can I go ahead and change this parameter to GRS and rerun this command once again? Can I do that? No, because new storage account will fail because storage account name is already existing. So it will fail even if I change it to GRS. Then what is the command to modify an existing resource? Set, exactly. There is a command called set. So I'll say modifying a resource. And you can only modify, the condition here is that you can only modify the properties that are allowed to be modified. Like like let's say replication. You can do take it from LRS to GRS, ZRS and all that stuff. You can do, let's say, account tiers from hot to cool, cool to hot, sorry, access tiers, hot to cool, cool to hot, and all these things out. You cannot change the name. You cannot, let's say, go ahead and change the location. That's something that you cannot change. So even that is not allowed on the portal. Same thing is not allowed using the Azure PowerShell command line also. You cannot do that. So let's do a set. And what do I want to set out here? AZ storage account. Exactly. I want to set a resource in Azure called storage account. I'll say hyphen. It's asking me what is the resource group name that is present in. I'll say name, and then the name. I'll give my actual name. This is something that I pass here, so I'll just copy this out here too. I'll say SKU name, exactly. This is the property that I want to change called SKU name. Again, if you look at this particular command, right, you don't do you see location anywhere? No location, no, let's say, account here, nothing. No name, I mean, meaning no storage account name can be changed and etc. You can only change those properties that are allowed to change. In my case, SKU name or access tier, hot to cool, cool to hot. I'll say SKU name, I'll say standard GRS, and I'll change this out too. So I can do a set hyphen AZ storage account. Again, new hyphen AZ storage account is to create something. Set hyphen AZ storage account is to modify something. And now I have what? Storage account name, something like this. And now do you see? It's saying primary location is still ECS2, and it's now saying what? Standard GRS. Let's go to the portal, and the portal still says standard LRS. It still is showing that this is LRS out here even if I set this out. Just do a quick refresh. GRS. Now I have a primary location called ECS2 and I have a secondary location called Central US out here. So this is what I do have, or this is what I can use my set command for. Yes, same process we'll have to follow from. Mhm. You give the access tier. You can change two properties at the same time, not a problem. If you want to change, let's say, SKU name and the access tier, after the SKU name, just go ahead and pass hyphen access tier. Cool. You can also do this. And if you run this out, it will also change the access tier from hot to cool. So all the properties that are allowed to pass, all the properties that are allowed to change, you can change all of them once, or if you want to change it one at a time, you can also do that. Yes. Any questions till here? Anyone? Any questions till here? Sorry. That's what I was telling is that can you change the location using the Azure portal? Can you change the location of a storage account using Azure portal? Yes. I'm telling, can you change it on the Azure portal? I'm asking you the question that I created my, let's say, storage account in ECUS2, right? Can I migrate my storage account, or can I change my storage account to SUS? Can I change the location here? If you cannot change here, then how can you change it using PowerShell? Simple. It's as simple as that, sir. You'll have to delete and recreate it. Exactly. You'll have to delete the storage account and recreate it. Again, one thing you note is that if you want to recreate the same name in WestUS2 or WestUS, whichever region it is, if you delete the storage account, it will take around 5 to 6 minutes for Azure to unreserve this name, because this name here is reserved for you. So Azure will deallocate that reservation. Again, let's say keep it in the open. You can do that, but provided you are not creating the account with the same name. You cannot have another account with the same name in a different region. It will fail, because storage account name should be globally unique. You cannot take the same name. I mean, anyone, even if online people can also try this out. You can try the same name that I took. It'll again fail for you, because it should be
Can we
globally
take
unique.
backup and store it in different location?
You can do that, as in, like, as someone suggested, you can create a storage account, a new storage account with a different name, probably something like WestUS. You can say store dev ps000 WestUS. Take all the contents from this particular storage account and copy it to a different storage account. How do you again copy it? Using Storage Explorer, Microsoft Storage Explorer. That's what we did earlier. We migrated some data from our account to, let's say, that particular storage account. You can also copy data between containers using Storage Explorer, and then you can delete this one out there. Yes, any
Sir,
questions
for
till here?
example,
Anyone, any question? Mm-hmm.
hello, sir.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. For example, I am taking a South India. So in that
Okay.
area, I want to know GJDRS, whether it is there or not. How can I know?
Uh, Again, before you create it, when you look, let's say, look at the storage replications, when you say replications in storage account, replication in storage account or Azure storages,
So I can't see in PowerShell, right?
you can't see it in PowerShell. You'll have to, let's say, look at the documentation of it to understand which region actually supports and which region doesn't really support out here. Based upon that, you'll have to, let's say, figure out whether you can create somewhere or whether you cannot create somewhere, and etc. Again, if you do not, let's say, take the right region, it will just fail. The command will just fail to create, telling that I won't support it in, say, this particular region.
Okay.